And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week. It's summertime and time for the vaunted summer reading list. And I want to begin with a Pennsylvanian because I happen to be one. Robert Morris, the financier of the American Revolution, who actually pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor because he went to debtor's prison at one point after having financed the American Revolution. A signer of both the Declaration and the Constitution, Robert Morris will always be remembered as one of the people that put together the financial system of the United States of America. A great capitalist, a great college named after him right here in Pennsylvania, a great read by Charles Appleby, Robert Morris. And while you're at it, Alexander Hamilton, American. Now, the Ron Chernow book is better known because a famous Broadway play came after that, but this is Richard Brookshire's really excellent book on Alexander Hamilton, a little shorter read, one you'll like to take to the beach or up to the mountains with you. And while we're talking about Pennsylvanians, how about The Pennsylvanian, the biography of Joe Grundy by Anne Hawks Hutton, famous Pennsylvania historian. Anne Hawks Hutton's The Pennsylvanian, Joe Grundy, Senator Joe Grundy. And since we all are interested in the White House and its occupants, the White House, the hidden White House, Harry Truman and the Reconstruction of America's Most Famous Residents. A really good read by Robert Clara if you're interested in the history of the most famous address in the world, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And one of the greatest occupants of that house, Ronald Reagan. I still believe that the best book on the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan is Rawhide Down, but how do you beat Bill O'Reilly's Killing Reagan? Again, the story of the assassination attempt on Ronald Wilson Reagan. Founding Rivals, Madison versus Monroe by Chris DeRose. This was the first election held under the new United States Constitution, and in the 5th District of Virginia, you had two future presidents squaring off against each other. One, James Madison, an intellectual leader of the American Republic, and James Monroe, a military hero who was seriously injured in the Battle of Trenton. Squaring off against each other, Monroe was favored to win in a rural district, Federalist versus Anti-Federalist, but Madison out-hustled him, won, and the rest, as they say, is history. And finally, Lincoln at Peoria, The Turning Point by Lewis Lehrman, a famous Pennsylvanian, founder of the Rite Aid Corporation, and a candidate for governor of New York once upon a time, who nearly beat Mario Cuomo for the Empire State's governorship. It is a great read. Lewis Lehrman, in addition to being a phenomenal businessman, is a serious historian with one of the largest collections in private hands of political memorabilia and historic documents relating especially to the Lincoln period, and he endows the Lincoln Prize at Gettysburg College, his alma mater. Again, a great read for this summer. Just a couple of weeks away from the beginning of the presidential nominating conventions, I thought ballots and bandwagons was a good place to start. Ralph G. Martin's tome about the nominating process and the contested conventions of years past. He served on Adlai Stevenson's team and was part of those great Democrat fights in 1952 and 1956. Written in 1964, 60 years ago, it was before the tumultuous 1976 Republican contest between Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford and the 1980 brawl between Jimmy Carter and Ted Kennedy. But an interesting read. And by one vote, the disputed presidential election of 1876, the closest election in American history, decided by a single electoral vote. Rutherford B. Hayes, although he didn't take the popular vote, wins the Electoral College vote and takes the presidency from Samuel Tilden. This one you can't miss. A real iconic book, long ago on our best list for the summer, John Adams, the biography by David McCullough, who passed away a couple of years ago. Great author. He had a summer home in a little town near where my parents lived up in Maine. They put a sign in front of the library as he passed that said, "We're going to miss your stories." This is one of his best. And a gift to me earlier this year, The Demon of Unrest by Eric Larson. great author who wrote The Splendid and the Vile. Some of you remember that being on the summer reading list once upon a time. This is the story of Fort Sumter and the beginning of the Civil War, written like a novel, but true history, and really, really a page-turner if you're sitting on the beach with nothing to do but read and enjoy. As I promised, we'll be back with some more later in the summer, but for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.